Today, this is what we're going to talk about. Who are you? Really? Who are you? Really, who are you? I remember some time ago, some of y'all may have been here, I think it was at a fall festival we had, Miss Gloria Krause dressed up. Some of y'all remember that? So I remember just seeing this really ugly guy, which obviously it had to be a mask on, right? Because this is Miss Gloria. She has since passed away with her sweet, precious self. But she, unbeknownst to me and the majority of everybody else here, in walks this, what looks like is an old man, and then to get a little closer you realize that it is a costume. But the problem was I had no idea who it was. And he had a suit on, which was a jacket and the trousers, and it seemed like it might have had a walking cane or something. And at first, I was kind of thinking, that's pretty funny. Whoever that is, they're doing a great job. And I'm like, who is that? And then the curiosity or the humor turned to like, kind of concerned now. In light of everything that's going on in the world today, in churches even, people coming in with trench coats on, and we got this big event where everybody's invited, and here's this person that I have no idea who they are. So I wrote down to track my emotion. I said it started out as funny, then it turned to curiosity, then I got really concerned, and then, just being open with you guys, I got fearful of what could happen. And then there was some anxiety that started to build there. I went around and talked to some of the guys that were serving in security. I was like, hey, I don't know who that is. I can't find out who that is without being really rude, walking up there and peeling the mask off. So let's just really watch this person, because I don't know who they are. And it was a little bit of time there before Pot, her husband, pulled me to the side and said, that's Gloria. I was like, wow, I never would have figured that. That right there, guys, gives us the perfect lead-in for what we're going to talk about today. Sometimes we carry ourselves in such a way and we dress in such a way that people really don't know who we are. And I've entitled today's message this: costumes are for tricks, not treats. They really don't treat us right, and they don't treat those around us right. And they end up being a part of tricking people. There is a huge cry going on in our world today that there is a longing for what we're going to call today authenticity. Our younger generations are crying out for this. They're looking for people who are real and people who don't mind being real. You see it in the public things that people are, you can tell by the way they dress, by the way they carry themselves, by the way they put on accessories and stuff. They're trying to express themselves in a way that everybody will know who they are. You see it even privately with different ones getting together, and they long for opportunities to have a heart-to-heart with someone that you can sit down and you can really share with them openly about everything that's going on with who you are right now. And I think the reason why some of our younger generations are really longing for that is because we, the older generations, have not always been that person. As a matter of fact, sometimes we've worked really hard to hide what's really happening behind the costume. And what happens is we begin to starve not only those around us of what a real relationship must be, but we really starve ourselves. And begin to create within us this longing to have that connection with someone. So what I'm watching is, and I believe those of you that have children and are with children would probably attest to this as well, but it's like the younger generations are kind of raising the standard of what a relationship is. Like, if you can't be real, we can't be friends. If you're going to wear that costume and try to trick everybody, then that's really not a treat for anyone. So it's really not going to work. So let's start with saying, what is authenticity? What does it mean to be authentic? Well, a few things that authenticity is not. These are some of the things that are happening in our world today. Authenticity is not what people would refer to as social relativism. In other words, just because it feels right or someone says it's right, that doesn't make it right. That's not being authentic. Authentic is not just trying to become something because it feels right. It's not trying to be something because somebody else says that it's right to be that. We see that throughout our society. We also see what many refer to as social elitism. Now, to be in this group, you've got to have a couple of things. You probably got to have a really dark past, and you probably need to have a lot of tattoos. Because then you are socially elite. You are separate from someone, and you're separating yourself, not because you're really being genuine and authentic and real. So that's really not what authenticity is. And another thing that we see going on, and unfortunately this one even happens a lot in the church, not that these others don't, but this one happens a lot, and that is there's distinctions that are drawn because of a cause that you are connected to. For example, someone might introduce themselves as, "Hi, my name is Jerry. This is my pet cat. I rescued her. I'm an advocate for animals." And they separate themselves from some others being connected to a cause. There's been churches that I feel like, this is my personal opinion, I feel like have kind of got misdirected because they get so far out there on a cause. And it's a good cause, like saving animals. That's a good thing. And being against abortion is a good thing. Being pro-life is a good thing. But sometimes we get so disconnected with people because we're connected to a cause that we end up isolating ourselves, and that is, again, not what authenticity is. So what is authenticity? It's just really not being false, not being an imitation of anything or anyone, but it is just being real, being true to yourself. You remember that one? Be true to yourself. I believe we see this in Ephesians chapter 4, verse 22 through 24. This is the Apostle Paul. He was authentic. As you study him, he was the first to let you know what was going on in and about him. And this is him speaking to us in the early church and today. He says, "Throw off your old sinful nature and your former way of life, which is corrupted by lust and deception. Instead, let the Spirit renew your thoughts and attitudes, and put on your new nature, created to be like God, truly righteous and holy." And what does that have to do with authenticity? We'll study a little bit closer in just a moment how Jesus gives us some direction on that. But it's just simply doing this. Every day, both in your private life and in your public life, being willing to call out what your old sinful, selfish, lustful nature is. Call it out for what it is. But pursue the renewing of God's presence in your life. So whenever I was studying through this, much of my research come out of our magazine. It's called Relevant Magazine. And one specific article in there by Stephen McApplin. He pastors a church out in Los Angeles, where you could imagine pastoring a church in Los Angeles. You're right on the cutting edge of what's going on in our generations of today. And he wrote this article about, this is really what the church, what people are longing for when they come to church. They just want to be around people that are real. They want to be around people that are willing to discuss who they are, what's going on in their life, in light of God's grace. So I thought about that song, this song by Tauren Wells, "Fully Known and Loved." I remember years ago, Shorty Metcalf. Shorty has since passed away, but he said this about friendship. He said, "Friendship is when somebody knows everything about you, and they love you still." What does it take to get there? Being authentic, being honest, being real, being true, being willing to recklessly abandon. That's what Tauren Wells says in the song. He says, "It is just hard truth and ridiculous grace." This is the hard truth about me right now. This is my current status, okay? This is my reality. But let me also tell you about this. There is a ridiculous amount of grace that is taking place in my life. So I'm fully known and loved by you. And that's who we are. God fully knows us, and yet he loves us. So this is going to differ from person to person as we talk about what it's like to be authentic. I've said this before. I want to say it again. I think this is why people like Teen Challenge. I think this is why they just seem to propel spiritually, just seem to really take huge steps spiritually, because their business is out in the open for everyone to see. Once you have, once our enemy, Satan, and our selfish, sinful desires have taken us to a place where it is wrecking our life and it is wrecking those, the lives of those connected to us, then it gets so incredibly obvious we can't hide it. So what happens is you can't put a costume over that. You can't cover that up. You can't hide behind some self-righteous, hypocritical costume you're on display for the whole world to see. So those journeys, as they come into the light, they're going to look different from person to person, but here's what's going to be the same about every one of them. They all are bringing glory to God. We overcome. How? By the blood of the Lamb and the power, the word of our testimony, the testimony of what he's doing in our lives. So let's look at, according to Jesus' words, a few steps on how that we can, I said it like this, how we can treat others to the real you. It is a real treat. I tell you what, I love the relationships, and I have more than one. I love the relationships in my life where I can sit down with someone and they can openly discuss what's going on in their life with no costumes. So let's talk about 3 steps you can take to be a treat to someone else. And I'm sure y'all picked up on it, but anyway, the timeliness of the costumes are for tricks, not treats. Number one, let's look at the scripture here in Luke chapter 9, verse 23, and Jesus gives us what's going on. The context behind this is he's just done some huge miracles. One of those is he just fed 5,000 people with probably less than most of us eat in a day. All right? So that was really big. Now he's pulled the disciples off. They're kind of in a private meeting, and he's answering some questions for them. And then right in the middle of that, he says this. He says to the crowd, if any of you wants to be my follower, you must turn from your selfish ways, take up your cross daily, and follow me. That's going to be our 3 things that we're going to talk about. How can we be more genuine? How can we really be true? How can we be what we're calling authentic? Well, you got to turn from your ways. You've got to take up your cross and follow Jesus. Let's break those down. Number one, what are you really doing when you deny yourself daily? This is what you're doing. You're being vulnerable. You're opening up yourself. You're giving access to others. This is a huge step right here. This is a step, I'm going to be honest with you, open with you, that a lot of people still have not taken in their life. Okay? This is a step where there's something that's still being hidden about you. There's something that you have really not brought forth. And here's the irony of it. I was standing out at my house yesterday, and I was looking at that Tensas River, and it was really pretty, really clear. And then it's like, literally, I walked out of the house one morning, and it looks like chocolate milk. It's like, it kind of like broke my heart. I was like, man, it's been so pretty. I love watching the fish, and it's just pretty. And now, unless something really weird happens, which every now and then it does, but unless something really unnatural happens, it'll probably stay this way till early next summer. I was looking at that river, and I was thinking, the fish are still there. Everything's still there that was there and part of that, but I can't see them. And sometimes that's how we are. All this stuff is still there. It's just now you can't see it. You can't really experience it. And some of us, we haven't really made a step in this area where Jesus says, deny yourself. And we hold on to that, and we pridefully hide behind this costume, and we refuse to be vulnerable. How can we be vulnerable? So I'm going to actually give you a step on how you can be vulnerable. This is a big thing. I remember standing right here some time ago and experiencing the freedom of knowing that there is absolutely nothing anyone could ever say to my wife that I have done that she does not already know. That was incredibly freeing to me, because there was things that I kept pressed down and hidden. Now, that doesn't mean you go into gory details about all the ways that you were under deception and all that, but just to say that, I was vulnerable, and at that time, I wanted to give my wife full access. And the freedom that comes from that is, I believe, a part of what Jesus is saying. Deny yourself. Deny what comes natural. What comes natural is for us to put that costume on, to hide it, to cover it up. Well, here's how you can do it. Be a storyteller. Tell the story of your life. It's not really who you are. It's not really an indication of how God sees you but it is a part of your story. So you could just tell a story. And even today, the things that are a part of your life today that are not who God designed you to be, you can also reference those in the same way. This is part of my story. This is part of my journey. It's part of where I'm at right now. But it's not who I am. You can intentionally share with people how there's areas of your life that were broken, how there's areas of your life that maybe are still broken. And you can share with them in a form of a story about how you need Jesus tomorrow for areas that you're going into, or for how you're pursuing him and his fullness and all of who you are today. As you study the life of Christ, you see there's a gap between where we are and where he is as a person. And you can talk about that as a story. And it kind of takes your identity out of the, out of the equation, which is a big thing for a lot of us. So not only must you be vulnerable, but Jesus says, deny yourself, and then he says, take up your cross daily. So this is where we kind of really embrace the tension of it. What is it like to take up your cross? I thought of it like this. You could either take up your cross and follow Jesus into being the person that he created you to be, or you could just keep wearing a costume and pretend. It's kind of like, am I going to take the parts of me that God has revealed needs to die? Am I going to take those to the cross of Calvary and let those die? Or am I just going to hide them? Hide or die. Costume or life. You bring them to the cross. You pick up and you carry your cross every day. What does that look like? You actually are open and transparent and genuine and authentic with God in prayer. And in your spiritual disciplines, in spending time with God and studying his word. Guys, it is awkward. It is painful. It is challenging emotionally. It's going to challenge everything that's natural to you and about you. It's uncomfortable. And that's just what it looks like. That's what it feels like. And that's what the experience is like when God is working to change things about us. I mean, we embrace that in other areas of life, don't we? I was so glad to watch that video of Sicily Island Friday night with 8 seconds left on the clock. That was incredible. I would have liked to have been there to have experienced that. 8 seconds left on the clock. They're down to Cedar Creek, a big old powerhouse of a team out of Ruston, and they're down. And they're somewhere. I'm gonna say they're on their side of the 50-yard line. They're close to center field. Tyreek takes the snap, drops back, and when he throws the ball, there are 4 defenders in the end zone. 4 of them. He lobs it is a Hail Mary. It is a bomb. And here comes Keontae out of nowhere. Dead sprint. And a guy is literally standing there fixing to catch the ball, and here comes Keontae. Catches it, knocks that guy down, and he just stays face down and just lays there in the end zone. Touchdown, man, and everybody lights it up. Game's over. Touchdown, they won. That was so awesome. Well, here's the backstory to that. That don't just happen just by showing up Friday and deciding to play a game. There's been a whole lot of work went into that. Lots of work, lots of exercise, and lots of discipline, lots of just really showing up day after day after day, going through the routines, putting in the work. And guys, we all want those big highlights in our life, don't we? Well, you know when they come? They come after the work, after the awkwardness, after the uncomfortableness, after the pain. And it's the same in our spiritual walk with God. Stay committed. Stay committed to what God is doing. That's what Jesus is saying to us. Take up your cross daily. Daily bring who you are before the Lord. Kneel at the cross. There's pain in the burial, okay? But there's life in the resurrection. And everything that happens throughout the life-giving power of the resurrection, everything that happens makes all of what you went through for the grave worth it. The resurrection is worth the challenge of the grave. So this gives us the opportunity to take this journey with others. whenever we deny ourselves and we take up our cross daily, then God begins to open up opportunities for us to continue this journey with others. Now, I want to go ahead and give you a heads up. As you continue taking steps towards being more authentic and being more real, don't expect others to join you on that journey immediately. As a matter of fact, you may sometimes find yourself sharing your story with someone that's not willing to share theirs. Don't let that discourage you. You are on pursuit of who God created you to be. You are being conformed to the image of Christ. Dude, you better get that back and put it up somewhere. Don't let someone else's lack of authenticity discourage you from continuing to be on that journey yourself. And here's the other side of that. When that someone in your life begins to open up and be genuine with you, be authentic with you, don't shame them. Don't preach to them. And here's what I'll let you know that you don't have to do that. Just treat them the way God treats you. Don't you love the way Brother Kevin shared that this morning? The difference and how it might have sounded in the garden when God walked in there. Some of us, if you was raised like me, or if you kind of thought like I thought growing up, sometimes you might think God walked in and said, "Hey boy, where you at? Hey, where you at?" But what a difference to hear the voice of Adam. Where are y'all? I want to be with you. In Romans it says that while we were yet sinners, Christ died for us. While we were his enemy, God's grace moved in our life. That self-same grace is available to us in our life. And what does that look like in our relationships where we're working to be genuine and authentic and open? Where we're working to take the costume off and stop tricking people and start treating people. This is what it looks like. When they begin to open up to you, you meet them where they're at. You don't shame them. You don't place guilt upon them. You don't preach to them and try to straighten them out. You just extend to them the same grace that God has extended to you. So that's being vulnerable and embracing the tension. Lastly, after you spend some time in these two areas, you're going to need to recover. So that's what the last one is. You recover with God's story. What does that look like? Well, that's you studying his word and accepting what he says about you. Who he says you are. You have to believe that. You see, we are and become what we believe. So as we study God's story, that's what Jesus was saying. Follow me. Take off your costume, the old life, and being vulnerable and living in that tension, it puts us in a place where we need some recovery. We need some healing. We need to be restored. And receiving God's word over us and about us and in us is how we follow Jesus. And in doing that, we recover. This is the time when we can be refreshed. Jesus' story, accept his story for our story. We become, again, what we choose to believe. We can believe what Jesus says about us is true. That he loves us. That he dies for us. And when we can embrace that as who we are, it makes it so much easier to embrace others the same. We are a part of his valuable creation, and so are they. So I thought it would be neat today for us to think about that and to partake of communion together at the end of a message as a way to really seal the deal, if you will. To really think about the sacrifice that was given, the price that was paid, the blood, the body, and the reason. And let that resonate within you and I and speak to our hearts about who we are. And let that be who we are, and let that be who those are around us. Jesus modeled what authenticity looks like. He lived a life of being loved by his Father, and it wasn't always easy in the world for him, was it? So we can study his life and see what true authenticity looks like. Embracing the reality of where you are in light of God's incredible, ridiculous grace. Treat yourselves to who you really are, and treat others and stop the tricky costumes.